What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Life with G. You are tuning into the second episode of a new monthly series called So You Think You Can. So sit back, grab some popcorn, share the video, and don't forget to subscribe. All right, you guys, welcome back to the second episode of our new monthly series, So You Think You Can, with a very special guest. I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I am Kelsey Lee, creator of the Magic Lies Within podcast and Kelsey Lee Wellness on Instagram, YouTube, Kelsey_Lee_wellness. And I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for agreeing to come on here with me. I know we had scheduled it originally for like the beginning of April, and then April Fools did what April Fools did, and we had to reschedule. So now we're here, but I'm excited. I didn't realize you had a podcast. When did you start your podcast?
I started it a few months ago in January.
Okay,
It's been
nice.
on my radar for a while. I just wasn't sure which direction I was going to go in. And since there's a big gray area with psilocybin mushrooms, I wasn't sure if I was going to focus it on that or health in general. So I've just been kind of going through different areas of health, mental health, emotional health, physical, hormones, nutrition, gut health, all the different areas of health and how they intersect.
And then can you talk a little bit more about what that holistic health coach, like what goes into that?
So as a holistic health coach, I help different types of people figure out the root cause of their health problems, and we go at their health from all angles. So we're going to look at your mental, emotional, physical, nutritional, gut health. What are you watching? What are you reading? How are you moving your body? Are you doing self-care? Instead of just focusing on one area of health, it's great to go to the gym. And also, if we're not in therapy, most likely our patterns and habits and traumas are going to keep repeating. So it's great to look at the totality of health, mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, and I love that approach because so many people think to just kind of go straight to the doctor. We're pushed a lot of pharmaceuticals and things like that, but it really is like a total care is needed for, like you said, your mind, body, and soul. I want to get into the nitty gritty with you because I love your profile. I know now we're like mutuals on Instagram, and you guys, she's great. Her posts are amazing. And you just seem like you're such a positive person. But one thing that I've realized with anyone who's in the wellness field, there's kind of like almost like a catalyst that brings you into wellness. So for you, can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey and what even led you to get into the holistic healing?
Absolutely. So I was born to two young addicts. And I was born into a poor community in Southern California outside LA, in LA County, a suburb. And I had no idea what nutrition was. And we very much trusted the doctors. I had several rounds of antibiotics every year since I was born. I'm from the 90s, so we're fully vaccinated. And I grew up with all kinds of chronic illnesses, chronic sinus infections, chronic bronchitis, chronic UTIs. I dealt with different viruses, and I had broken several bones starting from like 11. I was hit by a car, dislocated some ribs. So I got introduced to chiropractic care. And then I got introduced to yoga around 14 years old. I was super into sports and horses. And when I was 20 years old, I had a horse and we actually fell off a bridge and I broke her fall.
Oh my God.
So from that point, I definitely had an awakening. I definitely had a near-death experience, out-of-body experience, and her and I both survived. I got a helicopter ride, and she got rescued by several different county's rescue teams.
Mm.
And it was definitely a full mind, body, and soul health and healing from there on out. And
Wow.
part of them saving my life was doing a surgery to stop my femoral artery from bleeding out. It was bleeding internally. And in that surgery, they nicked some of my hip flexor nerves. And so I had a really hard time walking. I had to relearn how to walk and use the bathroom. I basically didn't have much feeling from my belly button down. I could, yeah, and I relearned, taught myself how
Wow.
to walk. And then from there, I started learning more and more about actual nutrition. I took a nutrition course in community college,
Mm.
and all the light bulbs went off, and I realized that I had been so underweight and malnourished because we were raised on mostly processed and fast foods.
Mhm.
And so as I'm learning what nutrition is, I started getting really mad and upset. And not just with the family who raised me, also mostly with society and our government for
Mm.
not necessarily teaching us what we need to
Yeah.
be healthy, what types of foods we should be eating, and a true nutritional diet, because those things were not available to us.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, first and foremost, thank you for sharing your story. When I had a theory of like maybe something led her here, I want to know what it is. I did not expect all of that. Holy shit.
Yes.
I want to say it's definitely you have one hell of a testimony. And I'm sure that's just like a portion of the stories that you probably have in your life. The near death experience, if we can just go back there for a moment, what do you remember, like, what that felt like? Do you remember any
Totally.
thought that crossed your mind before, like, maybe the impact of the fall? Can you take me through
The
that
whole
moment?
thing, the whole from start to finish is a very clear memory.
Mm,
I had gone on a trail ride with another gal, which I typically didn't ride with other people. And I was getting ready to go to the river. We're out in Southern California, so we're getting ready to go out to Lake Mojave for the weekend. So I went out to ride my horse to make sure she was exercised for the weekend. And I was dealing with some relationship problems, actually. My boyfriend at the
mm,
time was not happy and pleased that I was going by myself on this family trip. And, he was pretty tall, like 6'2" or so. And we're, in a little trailer at the river where they're sleeping on floors and bunk beds. And it's pretty jam packed. And
mhm,
so that's how I grew up. I didn't mind it. I just wanted to be on the boat with my cousins.
yeah,
And so as I'm on this trail ride with this woman, I was having a moment. And at that time in my life, I was really struggling with my relationship with God.
mm,
And I was very hurt from a lot of grief and loss.
mm,
And so in that moment, I remember looking up and just kind of thinking in my head, take me now. I'm over this. And
mm,
we went onward across the bridge that we walked over probably close to 400 times. And the horse in front of us stopped and backed up. And for whatever reason, my horse backs up to the right, and she just misstepped off the bridge because there was no railing. And we did a 180 and she fell on me. And it all happened so quickly
mhm,
that I I can remember all the details, but what mostly stood out to me was after we both fell all the way to the ground, and then she kind of fell down a ravine, and then the gal that was with me said my name and asked if I was okay, like, Kelsey?
yeah.
And I said, yeah, call 911 right now.
Oh my
And
God.
so I knew that something happened, and I felt a very initially as soon as I fell, I wiggled my toes,
To
right?
make sure you
To
could,
make sure
yeah.
that
Wow.
I wasn't paralyzed, and God, thankfully I was
Amen.
saved. My angels were there with me, and I was very present in my body for quite some time until the EMTs got there. And at
Mm,
that point, my horse had heard um, the ambulance, the sirens, and she somehow scaled this 15-foot like straight wall that she had fallen down. So she climbed up this thing to get to me. And so the
wow.
EMTs they're very methodical and slow with how they communicate, and they're very consensual in their steps. And at one point I was kind of on my side because she had been trying to get to me and it was very slippery, and I was like, oh no, I don't want her to follow me again. So I
Yeah.
kind of like turned over and was against the wall, and I kind of just looked over my shoulder and I looked at him and I said, less talking, more working.
Right.
So that's when he was like, all right, EMTs, like, come on, let's get some narcotics
Right.
over here. And they were kind of measuring like, wow, she fell from up there. That's like 25, 30 feet with the horse. Like she needs to be helicoptered over to USC Medical because that's the only trauma center in the LA County area. And
Mm,
as they turned me onto the gurney, I definitely had a moment of coming out of my body and kind of looking around and like I wasn't that high. I could still see like myself in the trees and the scene. And
mhm.
also I kind of saw all of the faces that were familiar to me, my grandparents, my uncle, my friends who had passed. And I kind of just felt like,
Mm,
oh, I'm okay. I'm not going to die, because when they initially had moved me, the pain was so severe that I was, that much pain, right? They say like childbirth
yeah.
is very similar. You can only take so much pain, and yeah, so it kind of just took over, and it was definitely, I kind of sang myself through some of that pain. I was singing
Mm.
myself, I think it's a Ziggy Marley song, on the beach in Hawaii.
Okay. You
Just
were
so I
singing
could,
through it.
just trying to get myself to stay there, and that's all she wrote. We were in the ambulance and on the
Wow.
way to the hospital.
Wow. So the fact that you mentioned you were already kind of struggling in your walk with God and your faith, and you literally asked or had the thought anyways of like, take me now. And then moments later, this
Yes.
happens. Did you have a moment where you were like, oh, well, that was kind of extreme, God? Like, why did you didn't have to take it that far? Or were you angry with him then? Were you like, well, that
I I think it was more of a realization of, okay, you're right. I don't want to actually die.
Mhm.
Actually, I do want to live. And when you're in the hospital, I went to the hospital, had surgery, was in the ICU for a few days, and I ended up being discharged for another few days in the osteo wing, and then they released me. And my mother was luckily a nurse. She had just got her nursing license at
Mm.
40 years old. And
Mhm.
she, they wanted to send me to a rehab center to relearn how to walk. And she absolutely was not okay with that at all. And
Mm.
she had just done some of her clinical hours in something like that, in a rehab center like that. And she just was not okay with that. And so
Yeah.
in order to be released, you have to speak with a psychologist. And at the time, I was actually working at a cannabis dispensary in the greater Los Angeles area. And so I had some friends come into the hospital and bring me some edibles.
Yeah.
And so I had some edibles, and I was happy. I was playing myself music, and the
Mhm.
psychologist was like, wow, you seem to like be doing all right, and I'm like, yeah, you just need to tell those old people they just need to get up and walk and get some sun, and
Mhm.
just listen to some music. I was kind of just okay. I
Yeah.
was like, all right, this is what's happening, and I'm healing. And I was so determined, because initially they had said, oh, you're not going to be able to, initially when I came into the ER, they're like, no, you're not going to the river today. Your pelvis is broken. And
Mm,
I was like, no, why? Like I was expecting to just, go to
right.
the river.
Yeah.
And so through that experience, I was just so determined to heal that I kept doing the physical therapy. They're like, drag your heel to your butt 10 times a day. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that like 100 times a day.
Yeah.
And I just was so desperate to see my horse because she had it was like close to 200 stitches. And
Oh,
I,
wow.
that night, had gotten out of, or they were done stitching her. So it took
Mm,
several hours. And it was an amazing, our coming back together after I was out of the hospital and I could make it down the stairs and get in the car. We went to visit her, and it was such a beautiful moment of
mm,
her just laying her head in my lap and like fully just smelling me and breathing me in.
yeah.
And the veterinarian who took care of her still to this day says I have seen very few relationships like that with a
Like
humans
that.
and a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you technically, since you broke her fall, you probably saved her life as
Yeah.
well, right? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's what I was told. That's
Yeah.
between the EMTs, the firefighters, because they did come back to the ranch, to the farm to visit and check in on us a couple times if they were in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was a pretty amazing healing, and we're just both really determined. And our she to me was much more than just a horse or an animal.
Yeah.
She was like a friend, a best friend, a sister, a child, a parent. My parents weren't very present with me in my life, and so she was everything I needed. And so for us to have, like a 2-week separation and her think the worst, that I was
Yeah.
dead for a time. She struggled the first week I was in the hospital, and
Oh,
luckily
wow.
my mom and sister really stepped up in that moment and visited her every day, and we're doing a lot of wound care, and so she could kind of smell me on them.
Mm-hmm.
And also that moment that we actually got to see each other, she was just so relieved. And from there, both of us, our healing just sped up very rapidly.
How is she now? Do you still have
She
her? Or-
she passed about three
Oh,
years ago.
oh,
She's actually here with me there. That's her.
oh,
That's her there. That's her.
God, I could
Her skull.
cry.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was
Wow,
lucky
wow,
enough
wow.
when she passed. She lived to almost 28 years old,
Wow.
which is fairly old for
Yeah.
horses. And I had some wonderful brothers that I had met at Lakota Sundance, and they agreed when it was her time to help me skin her and make drums. So I have a drum that I play that's made of her hide, and I have her skull. And I am so thankful that I was
Yeah.
able to honor her in that way.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I thank you so much for sharing that. I can't even begin to imagine what that experience would be like, but I know I can tell you I got goosebumps just listening to it, as I'm sure you get that reaction a lot. So, from what I'm hearing you say in that experience that you're describing, it really seems like you asked almost for a reset,
Yeah.
and in one way or another, you got it. And
Totally.
wow, so how long after the accident did you kind of go at it with this determination of, okay, this time with this chance at life, I'm going to go as hard as I can? Because it sounds like that's what you did. So when did that click for you?
So I definitely kind of struggled through it. The getting off of the morphine and all the stuff they had me on through the surgery
Mm,
in the hospital was honestly almost worse than the pain that I was in.
wow.
And thank God for cannabis, because I don't know where I would be without it.
Yes. Hmm.
And I I definitely went in a little deeper with alcohol after that. And then shortly after that, probably a year, I moved up to Northern California and I got sober unexpectedly. And that's when I started to learn even more about health. And I was diagnosed with GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease.
Okay.
I had been living off of alcohol, pancakes, and frozen pizzas, and that was about it.
Mm,
And so that really got me, because I tried the Western medicine. They suggested some, antacid, this and that. I tried it,
mm,
it did nothing. And so I just started reading and
yeah.
researching and reading and researching. And so I changed my diet and I added some probiotics and I healed myself. I did not have any symptoms after that. I definitely couldn't eat my favorite pizza anymore. But
Hmm. Yeah.
and also I went really far into all kinds of healing. From then on out, when I got sober, I really dove deep into mental health. I started going to EMDR therapy, trauma reprocessing. I dove into acupuncture. I went to Vipassana. I started teaching yoga. I started gardening and growing my own herbs and veggies and things. And it was a really special, potent time in my life in my early 20s to have
Mhm.
such a clear mirror. I was married pretty young in my 20s after I moved up to Northern California. And so that relationship also was a huge catalyst for me to work through a lot of stuff that I didn't even really realize was affecting me the way that it was.
Yeah. Wow. That's it's remarkable. I want to kind of dig into something that you mentioned before, and that was when you were on this health journey and you're educating yourself on nutrition specifically, that you had a little bit of anger with society and where things are
Oh, totally.
today. Yeah, and I really want to get into that because especially like as a mom, I know this is going to be dropping in May, so happy Mother's Day for all you ladies out there, right? And one thing is like we want to nurture our children, we want to nurture our loved ones, but we need to nurture ourselves as well. And our
Absolutely.
nutrition and any medications that we take definitely plays a huge role. So when you're finding this out and you're seeing how much things maybe you should restrict for yourself, how hard was it to get on a new plan to make you feel better?
It was not easy at first. It was super interesting because as soon as I got sober and I started learning more about the physiology of the brain and how the brain works and how our addictions feed certain parts of our brain to get those serotonin, dopamine
Mhm.
all flooded out and to get those dopamine hits, I didn't really put two and two together. And so as I started to learn, wow, actually, I'm telling myself I'm not going to go buy this beer or this wine. And I literally couldn't do it by myself.
Mhm.
I would continue to tell myself over and over that I wasn't going to do this, I wasn't going to buy that or this, and I ended up doing it over and over. And so I was very blessed to find a community in 12-step program and an amazing sponsor who not only taught me how to follow the steps to getting sober, she taught me so much more. She was definitely the mother figure that I always wanted. She
Mm,
was the first person that I had shared sexual abuse with. She was who led me to getting EMDR therapy.
mm,
And she was the one who taught me how to work through resentments. And so in those moments, I did work through my resentments with God.
mm.
I did work through my resentments with society for not educating us about our nutrition because it can feel confusing to find out different information than we're being told or the lack of information, right? It's
Right.
for me growing up in a poor neighborhood on WIC food stamps, that was never something that we learned in schools, never something we learned. As I said earlier, I took a college course to learn about nutrition, my first little go round when I was, around 20. And so as I learned more about nutrition, I definitely felt a deep resentment towards our system.
Hmm.
How come we're not teaching people to use food as medicine? Because food is our medicine. Herbs are our medicine. I'm a firm believer that for every disease and ailment that we have a plant to heal it on
Hmm.
this earth. And so it's definitely a continual process, working through those resentments. Some days are better than others. And I just have a little process ritual that I do to kind of ride it out so that I don't get too caught up in it and hold on to it. And then, whatever passion explodes. And I don't want to
Yeah.
necessarily spew that on a innocent bystander.
Right, right. Now, I know when it comes to healthier lifestyles, going the more holistic route, a lot of people have concerns with finances and how easily accessible a lot of these things are. So, can you talk a little bit about that? How easy would it be for someone financially to start their health journey if they want to go that route?
I love this question and I love talking about this when at this moment in time it's definitely very hard for all of us, right? As prices raise, as salaries lower, it's
Hmm.
very it's hard. It's hard to make those commitments to health. And also going back to my early 20s, yes, it was a different time. And also, I didn't have a job, I didn't have a car, I didn't have very much money. And I was so determined to change that spiritually dead feeling that I had inside myself, that I got online, I looked for jobs, I rode my bike to through the mountains to get a bus. I asked around. A lot of the 12 steps is teaching us how to ask for help. And it's not easy, and most of us aren't taught to do that. I know for me, being raised by an independent, strong woman, that you're taught not to depend on anyone, especially another man.
Hmm.
And so that can really get in the way of asking for support and for help. And
Yeah.
that's how we heal. We heal in community. We heal through connection. And so as I was going through the sobriety process and reprocessing trauma, I it took me it took me probably 8 different tries to finally find a trauma therapist who specialized in crisis trauma reprocessing. And I had to call I had to call 7 different people and leave voicemails. I even made an appointment with another lady who ended up canceling and not showing up.
Mm.
It's not designed and set up to be very easy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And luckily today we have things, like online. I haven't personally used BetterHelp. However, at least there's something, there's an
Yeah.
option. As
Hmm.
far as I know, it's pretty affordable. And so I have had to really do a lot of rewiring and repatterning with the way that I spend my money and what's important to me. And for me, I prefer to spend my money on really good organic food and supplements so that I can feel my best. And yeah, that means sometimes I maybe miss a credit card payment, or maybe I, don't get to go on that trip or this vacation.
Hmm.
And also, I notice a big difference now that I've eaten this certain way, organic, whole foods, no fast food, no processed food. If I even try to eat those things, I get sick.
Hmm.
And so it makes a huge difference. And I have just chosen to invest my time and money and energy into my health. And that continues to be the best investments that I can make are into myself, whether it's education, whether it's supplements, whether it's a gym pass, therapy, what have you. I'm actually going through a process right now, kind of dealing with the 13 years later after that accident. I have a lot of scar tissue and lesions and fibroids in my pelvic area, and I don't have children. And I'm 34. I would love to have children before I'm 40. And I am going through insurance to try to get some scans and tests to sort out what's the best option.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some referrals. Luckily, I can get the ultrasound sooner than later. However, I they're scheduling out to September
Mm.
for a pelvic floor physical therapist.
Wow.
And so it's definitely not easy by any
Mhm.
means. And so I've also looked into other things. You know, I've looked into other pelvic floor specialists who don't take insurance, and it's definitely pricey. One
Mhm.
session, $200. Second section, it's like I think 160, 150. And so that's where I get to choose where I'm gonna budget and invest and save, you know, because
Yeah,
September is a way out, and
that is, yeah.
I'm ready. I'm ready to do something about it. And so I think that for most people in this day and age, we just have to make our choices.
Mhm.
And I definitely started to make slow changes. And so I started to switch over to organic veggies and organic meats. And then I kind of just went deeper and deeper as I went. And now it's a part of the budget. It's how I eat. I buy regenerative game meats and organic fruits and veggies, and that's how I live.
Yeah,
And there's no cutting corners for me, because otherwise I'm gonna feel shitty, and I don't want to feel
yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, you feel the effects of it for sure. I know so many people try to start their health journey like cold turkey, which I know is like a big they recommend that's a big no-no. Don't
Yeah.
try to do it cold turkey. So for someone who is doing that, like you said, you kind of started going with more of the organic products and then slowly
Yeah.
ventured your way in there. Is there any like supplements? I know I've heard things about things like ashwagandha or
Mm.
anything like that. A lot of women, especially if you guys identify with me, we're anxious girlies over here. A
Mhm.
little depressed sometimes. So like in order to keep those, I think you mentioned the dopamine,
Yeah.
that high or the serotonin higher. Is there any natural supplements that you recommend that someone can kind of start out on for that?
So a good ashwagandha is a great one to help relax. It's an adaptogen. I also love things like valerian root. It's also another relaxing. I was a big proponent of CBD and
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms, and those really in combination with the therapies to really feel the emotions and learn to pause in those moments when you're feeling anxious. I also was a highly anxious human, always
Mm-hmm.
looking forward, what's next, where, you know,
Yeah.
where. And so for me, what really helped was a combination of some cleanses, focusing on liver health.
Mm.
And an easy one is to do castor oil hot packs on the liver. And that's something, it's fairly affordable, you know, maybe 20 to $40 for all the supplies. And you can do that nightly. And it really helps. I found supporting the liver helped me a lot with anxiety.
Mm.
Flushing the liver of the toxins, you know, like I said, I grew up in LA. I definitely had my fair share of drugs and alcohol. And so when I stopped all of that, those emotions all came flooding back. And so, really, that internal organ health is what helped me conquer the anxiety, and also scheduling and practicing sitting still,
Yeah.
because to me, that was torture. When I
Mm.
first started meditating, just even doing 20 to 30 minutes was torture to me.
Mm.
And it is a big, I just see a huge burnout, fatigue, exhaustion, especially in us ladies. We're not meant to be go, go, go all the time.
Yeah.
And so scheduling that rest can be really super helpful and beneficial. And not only for for us as women, it can also help the way that we mother, the way that we show up as a
Mhm.
sibling, as a daughter, as, you know, a friend. It's not an easy one out here in the world. And I started to go deeper and deeper into hormone health.
Mm.
And what I learned for me was that because I had been on birth control for so many years, I wasn't producing progesterone naturally. And the building block of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin is progesterone.
Mm.
And the building block of progesterone is cholesterol. And so I just started going deeper and deeper into these things and getting more tests and blood work done. And then that's how I learned that my cholesterol was very, very low. Progesterone was very, very low. And so to combat that, I added in a lot of healthy fats. So organic avocados, wild caught salmon, pasture
Mhm.
eggs. I was having almost that type of meal once a day for several months until I got it up to a healthy place.
Nice.
And it made a huge difference for me because I definitely was somebody who was diagnosed bipolar. And so the ups and downs were pretty intense.
Mhm.
And after I had gotten sober, one of the recommendations was to take medication. And in that moment at 21, 22, it just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to me that taking more chemicals after I had just been getting rid of chemicals
Yeah.
was the best thing for me. And so that's one of the major catalysts for me was to dig deeper into that organ health and figure out what I could do. And another great one, depending on where you're at in the world, if you're in the US, a lot of states give you state insurance if you're low income, and they offer 2 acupuncture sessions a month.
Mm.
I know California, Oregon, I think Colorado, Washington, Nevada, on the West Coast, it's very prevalent, and it's becoming more and more common throughout
Mhm.
our country. And that is a big one for me. Getting
Yeah.
my regular acupuncture has been probably the thing that I've stuck with the most over the years.
Yeah. And I like just in your description of the different things that you've tried and how you combine it all together. I know a lot of people who are going into their like holistic journey, they kind of get into a niche and then they want to stick there. Like you find a lot of people that are like, I found acupuncture helps. That's all I want to do. Or I found
Totally.
these herbs, that's all I want to do. And there's like a
Yeah.
big push to not go to the doctors at all. But I like the
Yeah.
fact that you went, you got testing, you utilized, that for what it can be used for, and then you were finding
Totally.
alternatives, so that way you can heal yourself all around, and then the mental health with the therapy as well. So I think that speaks volumes of your dedication to heal yourself in every form. So I respect you for that. I know that had to be a lot of hard work. Were there days where you were like, this is too hard, I
Oh,
don't want to
yeah.
do this?
Oh, of course.
So
All the day happens.
how did you get through that?
You know, it's not an easy one. And also, because I was so desperate for change in those moments, I was
Mm.
desperate to have healthy relationships in all areas of life. I was desperate to feel more mentally, emotionally stable. And I just, even when I didn't want to go, I just did it anyway.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from the 12 steps because even when we're feeling great, we go to meetings anyway. Even when we're feeling shitty, we go to meetings anyway. And so developing that discipline to do it anyway, usually after you choose to do it anyway, you feel a little bit better. And
Mhm.
so it is so natural and normal to have resistance come up, whether it's, oh, I just started in the gym and this is my goal, or I just started with this therapist, this program, and I want to go, even once a week. Things come up. It's natural and normal. Life happens, and I see those as tests and little hurdles from creator, and it really gives you the strength and it develops this discipline where you just do it anyway when you don't want to, when you really really need to, when you're like, oh no, I'm doing great, I don't
Mhm.
need that, it it ends up catching up to you.
Mhm.
So I have just learned to train myself and rewire the thoughts, and even when they come up now, usually I'm just going to write them down. I'm definitely a big proponent of journaling. I can't tell you how many notebooks I have.
Mhm.
And that's how I get through a lot of things is I write it out. And I notice a big difference when I don't do that. When I am just like, I'm going to stay here and I don't want to, and
Yeah.
those little inner children that are just like, I don't want to and I don't feel like it. It's okay. What do you guys need today? What do you little girls need?
Mhm.
So really just checking in. I've learned to just check in with these parts of me, ask them what they want. It sounds silly, and it's also super easy and simple.
Yeah. What
You're a mother, you have children, so I'm sure
Yeah.
you're sometimes they're able to communicate with you what's going on, and sometimes
Mhm.
they don't really know. They're just having a moment.
Yeah, that'd be the worst. I'm like, I know something's wrong, and they're like, I don't know, and I'm like, no, everything's changed. I know something's wrong, but you have to let them like sit in it because they don't even know themselves,
Yeah,
for sure. So I want to get into some of the options that people have and some misconceptions, because I am a big advocate for marijuana, for THC, CBD,
absolutely.
mushrooms as well. But I know, especially in not to hyper focus on moms, but there is a stigma if you're a mother, like you don't do that. If you're a woman, you kind of like it's not seen as ladylike to participate in those extracurriculars sometimes. And I want to talk about, especially for you, like you advocate for it. That's part of what you want to bring awareness to. Can you help kind of ease people's minds about the I don't know how to say it because they really demonize it. Can you give some
Absolutely.
disclaimers for us, please?
I will.
Yes.
So I want to start with cannabis, and I want to tell a little personal story because like I said, I was born to two addicts. And mind you, my father was definitely, he was a little older and more into the other extracurriculars and party favors. However, my mom was more of a stoner. And I was the oldest, and my two younger siblings, we moved to Vegas when she was pregnant with my brother, and in at that time it was still a felony in Vegas. So they said, if you come back here and you test positive again, we're taking the baby in your belly, and they pointed to me, and we're taking her too. So
Mm,
she stopped using cannabis at that point. And I don't know if it's related or not. However, I know that both of my siblings, who my mom did not smoke cannabis with, have really struggled with their with learning disabilities. And
mm,
super interesting to I have a lot of mom friends. I have a lot work closely with a nonprofit that offers psychedelic harm reduction and peer support. And recently they did a talk with moms on mushrooms. And
mm,
I love witnessing these parents navigate parenting and life with psychedelics. And so psilocybin specifically, and most other mushrooms, number one job is to grow neurons. And
mm,
so I heavily depended on mushrooms when I injured my pelvis and I could barely walk because of that nerve damage. Those mushrooms helped me heal those nerves. The CBD, CBG, THC helped me to not be a heroin addict because of all that morphine they had me on. It
mm,
helped me to reduce the inflammation, to be able to heal and do the physical therapy. And I have only seen my friends who eat psychedelics, whether they're microdosing or not, mushrooms, their babies are so intelligent.
mm,
It is incredible. Mushrooms specifically, like I said, their number one job is to grow neurons. So you're only strengthening that nervous system. You're developing more and more connectivity throughout the brain and the body. And who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's why the combination of mushrooms and adaptogens in the products that I make, we use 15 different mushrooms. So you're getting reishi, chaga, turkey tail, cordyceps, lion's mane, and a bunch of other ones with the psilocybin. And you're getting up to 150 different health benefits in one little
Mm.
capsule or one little gummy or one little square of chocolate. It's very helpful and beneficial. It could be anxiety. It could be we have clients that deal with high grade concussions, that have seizures, people with
Mm.
MS, um, vets with PTSD. There's so many wonderful health benefits that
Yeah.
are almost never ending. And I understand, because I was a part of the DARE program growing up, and the just say no, and the drugs
Yeah.
are really scary, and don't da da da. And for me, I I'm a third generation cannabis farmer. So my grandfather grew
Mm.
cannabis in the 70s and 80s, and it has always been a familiar friend. It works really well. I have a cannabis tattoo. I have mushroom tattoos. They are my friends. And one of my favorite quotes from Terrence McKenna is about asking the mushrooms for a non-human perspective. And
Mm.
so if you're stuck in parenting, you're stuck in your relationship, even a tiniest little microdose consistently could change your life in ways that are unimaginable. And I can see how it could be scary because of what we've been told, and taking super high doses by yourself can be dangerous. And I have done all kinds of doses. Actually, on April 1st, I ended up giving myself a heroic dose, which I try to do once every few years, and it had been a while. And
Mm-hmm.
so a friend actually recommended that I give myself a large dose because I was dealing with autoimmune issues.
Mm.
And so there's new studies that just came out at the end of 2024 about a large dose of psilocybin turning off an autoimmune system response, and you getting the receiving the benefits and reaping the benefits for at least a year. And so
Wow.
I don't recommend that just anyone eat a large dose of mushrooms. It's definitely vital to have a safe, we call them sitters, someone to sit with you so you can integrate before and after, a professional, to help you talk through whatever comes up. And also, there's just so many different benefits
Mm-hmm.
to THC, CBD, CBG, psilocybin. We don't even fully know how many benefits are available to us.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, we're at a place now. It's 2025. The world is getting crazier by the second. And I think it's hard even for people who want to relax or naturally would be a relaxed
Totally.
person to shut it off. Like it's on our phones, it's on our
Yep.
houses, it's down the street. So being able to have something like that, to be able to take, and that just kind of does the work for you for a second, that really shows you that there's more to live for. I know before I started kind of experimenting with those things, I was extremely depressed, very,
Mhm.
very anxious. And my parenting, I'll be transparent, it was not the best. I was very irritable. My patience was very low. And then when I started utilizing that, I saw the difference even in my relationship with my children. I was able to let them be kids. I wasn't so like pent up all the time. So I'm
Yeah,
definitely a huge advocate for that for sure.
it's a big testament to how our nervous system
Mm.
is constantly fight or flight freeze, and it can be really hard. Like you're saying, it's down the
Yeah.
street, it's next door, it's on the phone, on the TV, it's all over, it's
Mhm.
at school, it's on the way to work, it's wherever we're going. And getting our nervous system to relax and just be still, sometimes it takes help,
Yeah.
and not everybody has accessibility to getting weekly nervous system alignments or different types of healing. And eating a little gummy or a little capsule
Mm-hmm.
can really change your life in ways that are you can't even imagine. It's unimaginable how much relief. And it's not just about changing the way you feel, it's really about allowing yourself to feel safe enough to relax
Mm-hmm.
and allowing your nervous system to relax. And as you've experienced, it makes you a better parent, friend,
Yeah.
all the things.
Yeah. And I know just my own personal testimony, right after I had my daughter, I had very, very severe postpartum. Like I was
Mhm.
just, I was breaking down all the time. And they put me on Zoloft, I think it was like the generic version of Zoloft, which is an anti-anxiety medication. And I just remember it working, right? It worked, but I felt numb. I wasn't able
Yeah.
to enjoy intercourse. I wasn't able to
Yeah.
enjoy eating. I lost hella weight. So thank you, Zoloft. And I gained it right back. But those things where it was like everybody from the outside was like, okay, she's calm now. This is what she needed. She's losing weight. She's eating less. This is what she needed. But I felt like a shell. I felt like a complete
Yeah.
shell. And I remember taking myself off of it. Everybody was like, don't do it because it was so bad before. And shortly after I started taking myself off of it, I think was when I was going through my awakening as well.
Mhm.
So I was transforming, and then I started, for the first time, I was like getting ready to go into my 30s. So I think it was like 27, 28, the first time I really truly got, inebriated with some THC. And when
Yeah.
that worked for me, I was like, oh my God, I could have been doing this the entire time. And I feel like I'm living. I don't feel like a shell. So again,
Exactly.
huge advocate for that for sure.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that part.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and everyone is different. And also I personally, looking back, feel sad that no doctors ever asked me like anything about blood work or minerals or nutrients or diet or exercise. No doctor ever asked me any of those questions. And I am such a big proponent for, yeah, get that GI map, get that gut health situated. Like, let's look into that. Like, get our CBC, get our liver checked, because especially postpartum, we need so many more minerals and nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
And breastfeeding or not, just healing from birth itself, that's a very traumatic experience
Yeah.
on the body, whether you had a C-section or a natural birth or an epidural. Regardless, that is supposedly more pain than the human body is able to withstand. And so
Yeah.
it is fully a traumatic experience that needs healing on all different levels. And so if we're
Yeah.
not nourishing postpartum, around here we live in the mountains, we do meal trains for
Mm,
2 to 4 weeks after one of our gals has a baby, to make sure that they can rest. Dad is not having to do all the work. He can,
yeah.
support her and like heat the meals, and really just nourishing as much as possible so that those hormone dips, because it's also in a woman's life, the biggest hormone dip ever is after birth, postpartum.
Yeah.
And not having more education from doctors. And I also get it. Some people are so busy taking that pill. It's easy. It's like, cool, this
Yeah.
is going to help me. You're telling me this is going to help me. Fuck yeah, I want to feel better. Fuck yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want this
Yeah.
help,
Mhm.
And then also that like numbness and inability to enjoy moments is a testament to what it is, the numbing effects.
Yeah.
And plants, there's so many other plants I can think of that will relax. Like lemon balm's a great one.
Mm.
And also what I learned for myself getting that blood work is, oh, my vitamin D is low. Oh, my zinc is low. Oh, magnesium's low. All of these vitamins and minerals that are required to do all the functions in the body.
Mhm.
The liver does like 300 to 500 different functions. Because I was drinking alcohol for so many years straight, my liver was shut down, not working. So
Yeah.
naturally, hormones are off, gut is off, you're going to be depressed. You
Yeah.
know, there's so many different ways to go about things. And I envision a world where doctors get get to the root cause.
Yeah. And I can't tell. It's gotten to the my father is a doctor. So those of you who watch this frequently, you know
Ah,
my father is a doctor, right? So he's very like, he wanted me to take the vaccine for COVID. And I was like, I know that's controversial. Don't cancel me. But I was like, no, I'm not taking it. He was a big proponent, take the flu vaccines all the time. And I'm like, I take them and I feel worse. When I stopped taking them as an adult, when I felt like, you know what, fuck it, I'm not gonna take them anymore. I felt better. I stopped getting sick. I was always
yeah,
getting sick. Stop
yeah,
taking those, and I'm not. So I'm not saying that those things can't be helpful because there are people that it's helpful for. But I am saying if it's not working for you, explore other options because there are. It's not a one size fits all. You're all
totally.
different humans. And I think that's
Yes.
where, like, for you, I want to ask for when you're helping a client figure out their nutrition or microdosing or anything like that. I'm assuming you take more of an individualized approach. So can you talk about what that consultation kind of looks like and sounds like?
Absolutely. So our initial intake is about an hour and a half.
Mm,
And I am going to ask you if you have a therapist, if you're on medication, do you have a psychiatrist? A lot of women come to me because they want to explore plant medicine ceremonies and they can't be on most SSRIs, which are antidepressants and things like this.
mhm,
And so I I get a really good feel, if people can be honest with me, if their psychiatrist and therapist is supportive of this process,
mhm,
and also, well, what are we eating daily? How are you moving your body daily? Are you on your phone? Are you slowing down? And I have worked with quite a few single moms and mothers who are married, and it's really interesting to see the different ways in which we and think something's going to be great for us and not necessarily realize how it's like slowing us down or holding us back or kind of doing the opposite of what we want to reach our goals. And so we go really deep in
mhm,
to know this person. And because everyone is an individual, our first month together is definitely like weekly with pretty much any time you can send me a voice message because it's absolutely important for everybody, especially if you're starting a microdosing journey, to be checking in with yourself every day. Well,
mhm,
how am I feeling today? How am I feeling this day? And I definitely am a proponent for microdosing one day, taking 2 days off, microdosing, taking 2 days off. That way, it's giving your brain a chance to really catch up because
mhm,
as it's growing those neurons, sometimes we block out memories and trauma comes up, memories come up. I also am an EFT practitioner, so we sometimes will do EFT or tapping sessions to kind of work through any of those memories to get the nervous system to calm back down.
mhm,
And yeah, so it is definitely a day-to-day trial and error. The dosage, depending on height, weight, age, digestion, absorption, there's all kinds of different variables that we go over. And I
mhm.
definitely get to know my clients very well.
And I feel like that's how it should be. I imagine in the beginning phases of the medical field, and we know with the, in indigenous cultures and things like that, you had the medicine man, the shaman. It was more individualized. It did feel like your family member. This person who's prescribing you care knows you in and out, and that's the best choice for you. And nowadays, you go in for your annual physical. I remember getting a whole blood panel done, and my results were uploaded to a portal. My
Yeah.
doctor did not follow up with me, and there was a lot of things where it was like pre-diabetic, like right on the line. And I remember having a call and being like, hey, so I got my results. It's been 2 days since I got my results. When are we going to talk about it? And they're like, no, you don't have to come in. He'll call you. And it was just like, yeah, that's there, but you're not there yet. There was no solutions. There was no even like a full explanation of what the hell I was looking at on the paper.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm listening to you talk about all of these things that contribute to someone's mental health or their,
Yeah.
you know, how their body is. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I'm gonna have to go back and I need a new blood panel and I need someone to sit me down and be like, these are the
Absolutely.
things and this is what we're gonna work on. Because that's
Yeah.
crazy.
It is, you know what? And also I learned in my early 20s that getting your blood tests read by allopathic or Western medicine doctors doesn't always get you answers.
Mm-mm.
When I started seeing a doctor of naturopathic medicine and she read those results for me, I'm 5'9" and I've dealt with chronic malnutrition and being underweight. And so no one ever said anything. They're like, yeah, maybe you're anemic. Oh, maybe, I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, your kidney function's a bit low. Okay, well, what does that mean? What can I do? Is there, any
Right.
suggestions? Like you're saying, are there any
Yeah.
solutions? And it's so mind blowing to me how, especially for us women, it can be something just so simple as fasting with our hormones, eating
Yeah.
with our hormones, eating certain foods to build the estrogen. And then when we ovulate until we bleed, eating different foods. I'm going to shout out Dr. Mindy Key, who just put out Fast Like a Girl. Wow. From
Mm.
that horseback riding accident, I've always had heavy, intense, painful cycles. And
Mhm.
since I have started eating cyclically with my hormones, I have never felt better.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's like it's just that entire shift is just so crazy to me, and it's not as hard, but I think people have to want to educate themselves. A lot of us are in a very, and I fall victim to it too. Like it's easier to just grab what's there, what's cheaper, what you see
totally.
being shown to you all the time, but really taking that extra step to like pour into yourself and figure out other options for your health is so impactful and so instrumental. I want to ask you, in the beginning of your journey, or even now, if you could pick, maybe this might be hard to do, but like the top three things that you feel like were the most impactful to your healing and maintaining your health journey, what would those things be?
I would say, in a general sense, nervous system regulation. And that can look different for everyone. I've talked
Mhm.
a bit about EMDR and EFT trauma reprocessing. I have been working with a friend doing alpha biotics lately to align my nervous system consistently. And so allowing my body to detox cortisol has been huge in the way that I am able to show up for myself and my friends and family and community. And learning how to eat with my hormones has
Mm,
been one of the best, and I don't want to I want to say easiest, because
mm,
I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of cleanses that I definitely could have done at different times of the month that could have been even more supportive to my
yeah.
hormones. And so something that I see us ladies doing is going for intermittent fasting every day. And that's actually not helpful for our hormones. It can
Mm,
cause cortisol, it can cause weight gain, it can cause the liver to get clogged. And so, between nervous system regulation, eating with my hormones, and I would say liver health, whether that's
nice.
castor oil packs or dry skin brushing is something easy. You buy a brush, you do it once a day for 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It Those few little things that I have just scheduled into my life, it's a part of my day, have really helped my health. I barely get sick. And if I do, it's like, oh, my throat hurts. I'm going to take some this vitamin and that vitamin, and I'm going to do a little extra sauna for 5 or 10 minutes, and
Mm-hmm.
you definitely learn how to budget for what's important and what works for you, and
Yeah.
how to get those needs met as far as your health. Because for me, we're either going to invest in our health or we're going to invest in our illness. And we do get a choice, and it's not always easy. Sometimes it's definitely easier to get a pizza or stop somewhere else for food. And I'm very, very blessed to be in a town that does have organic little food options here and there.
Hmm.
And also, I don't always have the energy to meal plan and make
Yeah.
my meals. It's not easy. And
Yep.
I have learned to just affirm myself and remind myself my future self is going to thank me and love me for this.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
future self is really going to be super grateful that even though I don't want to do this and I'm tired and I want to lay down and watch a show and put my feet up, my future self is going to be very grateful.
Yeah. And that, I feel like we're our own biggest enemy when it comes to that, but we're also our own biggest cheerleader. Like no one's gonna
Yep,
support you like you support yourself. No one's gonna invest in you like you're gonna invest in yourself. So yeah, just
absolutely.
changing that mindset. I want to ask you because you have such a beautiful testimony, and I'm sorry I keep harping on that, but
Mhm.
one thing that I have noticed is a theory of when we are consuming processed foods, when we're taking these pharmaceuticals, it clouds everything, including us spiritually. That's a theory. And you mentioned before that you were struggling with your relationship with God. You know, you have this experience. Can you talk to me a little bit about what it's been like since you've transformed, how you're nurturing your body and how that's helping you maintain, or is it still a struggle sometimes spiritually when it comes to that?
So through the process of me getting sober in Northern California, I was led down the red road. I was led to sweat lodges and Lakota Sundance, and I really have always felt very connected to ancestors and people that I've lost. Grief is a big part of this path for me. And so in the sweat lodge, there's different rounds. And that first round, they teach you to always pray for yourself first, because you can only help others if you are taken care of first. And
Mm,
so that has been a big practice to really honor the ancestors and honor all of nature, all of the plants. You know, whether you see deer a lot in your area, you see a lot of butterflies, you see all the different
yeah,
birds, bees, all the things that make you smile, hummingbirds, you know, all kinds of cats, dogs, horses, whatever it may be, thanking those beings and really just connecting with spirit through that, through
hmm,
nature, has really been something that I would say has changed my life. And when we go to Sundance, there's no medicines, there's song, there's dance, there's community,
mm,
and we pray for each other. And there's no phones, there's no service, and we get to camp and we just get to be, and
yeah,
getting those moments to unplug and genuinely be present with each other and pray to spirit and pray for yourself, pray for your family, pray for your friends, pray for your ancestors is such an important part of life. And it's become something that I do every day.
mhm,
And I definitely am very grateful for all the things that I have experienced in the life and the losses. All of it has really made me who I am today. And I know that sounds cliche, and also it's a reality. You
no,
know,
it's
I
the
don't
truth.
think
Yeah,
I would have been where I was and met the people that I met to lead me on the paths that I've gotten to walk and learn and share with others, because that's how we
mhm,
learn, if we share with others. And so yeah, even if I just get to burn some sage and take my dog on a walk and look at some trees, leave my phone, that 20-30 minutes to me is such a good reset.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll probably clip this question in after because I forgot to ask you a question when you were talking about getting testing done and things like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned basically like based on your body frame, your build, and that they weren't really that concerned with your results. Do you feel like that is because you are a smaller frame, like you might visually look like you are healthy, so that's why they kind of disregarded that? And if so, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it felt very discouraging to be told, oh, your kidney function's a little low, or oh, this, or oh, that. And, oh, you're a little anemic, take some pills. And I did. I took some pills, it didn't do anything. And me being who I was, I just looked further and further and deeper and deeper. And so that is part of the work I do with my clients. We will look over the test results. Maybe that you will get them read, or they will get them read by a naturopath or a doctor. That's great. And also, I still want to go over it with them
Mhm.
so that it's super clear. Okay, this is what the high low is. And for me, I really struggled with a sugar addiction for a long time, and it caused me a lot of issues that no one ever really talked about. And no one ever really, and when I say no one, doctors that I had seen
Yeah.
never really listened to me. I never felt heard or understood. I always felt maybe like a little dizzy. I was always working with horses, and just to brush and groom a horse, that's like 400 calories.
Mm.
And part of my journey through elementary, junior high, and high school was being bullied for being so tall and so thin. I would be told,
Mm.
you're anemic, or you're bulimic or anorexic. And I was like, what are you talking about? I eat a bunch of food every day. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand. And so that was when I had taken that nutrition class in college and realized, like, oh, this is why I'm eating empty foods, like fast food. There
Mm.
is no actual real nutrition. Like, none of the packaged foods we're eating actually has nutrition. And this is
Yeah.
why I have headaches, depression. I definitely struggled heavily with depression as a 10, 11-year-old child. And
Mhm.
so learning how important balanced nutrition is really changed my life. And unfortunately and fortunately, the doctors never really helped or gave me the answers or the support or even helped me to feel understood.
Yeah.
And so I'm very grateful that other options were suggested and offered, whether that be Chinese herbs or acupuncture. And I'm just so thankful to have found practitioners that do look at me like an individual and do have more tests or more paths or more routes to go down to really get to the root of it, because
Yeah.
it's easy to treat a symptom. It's very easy to treat a symptom. It's not easy to get to the root of it and then also take the supplements or make changes to heal the root cause of that.
Right.
It can take months. I struggled with my liver not detoxing on its own for several years until I got a retest like a few months ago, and I was like, yes, it's
Yeah.
methylating, it's detoxing, like I did it. I'm stoked that I, even on days when I questioned, is this working? Is this a proper use of my funds, my money, my time, my energy?
Mhm.
Is this supplement helping at all? And I just kept at it and I kept at it. And even through the questions and the doubt, and here I am
Yeah.
feeling the best that I have ever in my life. And had I not had that curiosity and the discipline and that deep desire to just want to feel the best, I
Yeah.
don't think I would be here.
Yeah, and I think that's really what when it comes to our health nowadays, we have to advocate for ourselves because no one else is going to do it. No one else is in that doctor's appointment with you 9 times out of 10. And I know like you have the experience because you looked healthy. They weren't really that concerned, and I think For women in general, I can't speak for men because I'm not a man, but I'm sure they deal with it to an extent as well. But where our hormones, we have our cycles, we um, get pregnant. There's so many things that kind of mirror the same symptoms. I have this running joke of like, whatever you think is wrong with me is also a period symptom. Like, it could be the worst thing ever, or it could be a period symptom, or it could be a pregnancy symptom. Like, being a woman is irrational and crazy when it comes to how our bodies work. And then especially like, I've experienced it both ways. When I was thinner, going to the doctors and then being like, "Oh yeah, no, we're not that concerned." And then when I did gain weight, that immediate like, it's because you're big, it's because you're obese. That's why you're having these symptoms, and lose weight, and then it'll get better. And even female doctors were the
That's
same way, very just come in and come out. I don't know if I'll keep this in here, but I remember when I first moved to Jacksonville, it was a family doctor that the rest of my family used. First time going to her, and I thought that I had a miscarriage, and I was
Mhm.
married at the time, so I went. I'm like, something's wrong. Anyways. So when I went in, she's looking at my chart. She has no idea why I'm truly coming in there. She just thinks, oh, she's having issues with her monthly. And I needed her for a referral to an OBGYN. And as she comes in, I can hear her in rooms with other people laughing. So the walls are thin, and I'm aware of this now. And when she comes in, she's like, okay, so I'm looking at your chart. You're 4'11 and you're X amount of pounds. So do you just really like to eat or just don't like to exercise? Which one is it? And I was like, I mean, how do you respond to that? So I was like, both, because I'm a smart ass. I'm like, both, actually. And then I explained to her why I was there. And she was like, yeah, yeah, super nonchalant. Yeah, I mean, based off of everything you're telling me, you probably did have a miscarriage, but that's gonna happen because you're big. So if you want to have a baby, lose weight and then come back. And it was so just like, I was like, what the fuck? And then the way no one really reacted afterwards of being like, that's not okay, that wasn't a good experience. You should go to somebody
Wow.
else. Everybody was like, I mean, well, I guess. And I know a lot of women, especially bigger women, they deal with that. So what I'm trying to say is advocate for yourself. Because if I didn't try to get another doctor after that, who knows where my health would have
Absolutely.
went.
That
So
is that
yeah.
is horrible. I'm sorry that that was reality for you and that they didn't go deeper because they could do a cortisol test. Are you
Yeah.
stressed? Because if your body's trying to process cortisol, is your liver working okay? Because if
Hmm.
your liver is not able to process those extra hormones, whether it's estrogen or cortisol, the excess hormones get stored
Mm.
as fat on the body. And if we can't regulate and detox that cortisol because our livers flow, yeah, it doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter what we eat, and it actually doesn't matter how much we work out.
Mm.
If those simple, basic functions aren't working, it's like the hamster on the wheel. We're going nowhere.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's not more compassion and understanding
Mm.
and that advocacy to potentially dig a little deeper and get to the root is sad. It makes me sad.
Yeah, and I've always kind of looked at it as, if there's the assumption that I am dealing with these symptoms because I'm just lazy, I just don't like to exercise, how she said it, I just really like to eat and I don't like to exercise, then okay, ask me the questions that we need to get there so you can really know for sure that this is purely just a matter of quote unquote laziness, if that's the case. Because if it's not, it could quite literally be a major difference, life or death, or especially for women, if we get pregnant, if there was something that was missed there, that could be a determining factor. And I, my father's a doctor and he's a great one. So I hate that I talk so much shit about it. He's one of the good ones, but I hope and I pray that we have more people that are willing to dig into more individualized care, which is why I love what you do so much. And I truly appreciate the work that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
of
for
course.
having this night with me and this chat. It's
Yeah.
been such a pleasure.
Yeah, if you could leave our audience with any little bit of advice, and also to plug in your all of your things and what it is that you do again, what would you like to say to my audience?
I am here to encourage and empower us to get to the root cause and advocate for our health so that we can feel energized and we can feel good in our skin and love looking in the mirror and just genuinely feel the best that we possibly can. And we get to do that by asking more questions and being our own best healer because
Yeah.
we truly are our own best healer. And I pray that everyone is able to find the magic that lies within them to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been an absolute pleasure having you. Your story is incredible. I know that our audience is going to love it. Guys, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already joined the family. What are you waiting for? You guys already know my motto. If anybody tells you that you can't heal, yes, the fuck you can. And Kelsey can help you do it. So be sure you go check her out. Her information will be in the description below. Besos and blessings, and have a great night.